Nursery game again. Which one of these things is not like the other? There's a fourplex on the corner. We have a what here? Fourplex. New build right here. What else? Expansion over here. What else? Interesting, right? So the lesson for this deal right here, let's come down here a little bit actually. I want you to take a look. All right, what do you see down here, down this aisle here? More properties, what else?
Storage container?
Storage property, what else? Okay, so interesting thing. One of the things I'm going to tell you that I hope that you learn is that you can become your own economy. What does that mean? You can become your own economy. What does that mean? What did we do on the first property? You guys, most people's idea of selling a property is get the property and do the 3 P's of marketing. Put it on the MLS, put a sign in the yard, and pray it will sell. And we're far from that, right? We're what? We're creating our own economy. What did we do on that first property to create our own economy? Well, the first one, the very first one where we parked, we went out and got builders, from realtors, from my experience, from building permits, from driving all the areas in the cities and see which new home subdivisions are up and stopping and talking to the builder, creating my own list and reaching out to them before I had done anything. Controlling a piece of property that has a use that people want, even if that use isn't manifest through the paperwork yet, is oftentimes very profitable. If you want to wait the whole way through and make the profit, which one's better? $30,000 and 6 weeks or $100,000 in 18 months? Which one's better?
On your purpose.
It depends. If you have 10 of them going, some of those little nuggets are kind of fun. You guys wouldn't enjoy them, but I did. Especially back in the 90s, $30,000 was a lot of money back then, right? And we made more than that on that deal right there, but that's what I'm saying. So the next technique that I have this one on here, and by the way, there's lots more deals that I've done in these areas. We're here for specific reasons. This one right here had a for rent sign on it. So one of the rules that I want you to do is call every for rent every time. Call every for rent every time. Every for rent every time. Does anybody want to learn how in 10 minutes to turn a for rent into a seller financing?
Yeah, let's hear that.
Did you hear what I said?
Yeah.
Turn a for rent into seller financing. You want to hear that?
Yeah.
It doesn't work every time, but it works a lot. So this piece of property had a for rent up. I called the lady. It was for rent. I said, hey, I do property management in the area. You guys are going to see some other properties that I have nearby. I do property management in the area, and I noticed your for rent sign. I also was curious if you're interested in selling. I have a portfolio of owners who are interested in having more assets, and I'd like to see if I could sell it to one of them. Are you interested in selling? She said, absolutely I am. We just got divorced. My husband, and soon to be ex, owns a storage container facility. And I said, yeah, the storage container in the back that's been converted to 4 storage sheds. How much does that get you a month in rents? $35. 35 times 4 doesn't sound like a lot, but $140 a month times 12 moves the needle when you divide by a cap rate and get an equity or an appreciation for the cost of a storage shed. Guys, today, you can buy used storage sheds like that south of $5,000 today. And all the guy did was weld in walls, and I've seen them with stick-built walls between the units, and now you've got a storage shed for each of your 4 tenants. No problem at all. Very simple. But that's not the goal here. I said to her, are you interested in selling? She said, yes. I got this. I'm getting this in the divorce, and my husband wanted it, and when I knew that, I knew I had to have it. But I don't want to manage it. He's managed it for years. I just want to get rid of it. So I said, great, let's meet. Tell me what you're looking at. We'll look at pricing. Came over here, looked at it for a property to purchase, immediately put it in a contract for $165,000. Can you believe that? This nice fourplex for $165,000. Immediately put it under contract, asked her if I could manage it for her as a property manager during the listing period, got each of the rents raised $50, put it under contract with the gentleman who owned fourplexes 2 blocks over here, 3 blocks over here that we'll see. Actually 2 blocks this way and 1 block this way. He owned fourplexes there, and I sold it to him for $245. No commission, no purchase. I didn't have to close the deal. We just worked it out at the closing. I paid $165. He paid $245. I made $80,000. Didn't do anything to the property. Didn't do a single thing to the property. Now, I know you guys think, I don't have to do anything to the property, and you say, no, I want a hard one. Where's a hard property that I have to do a lot to? A lot of these, we don't do a ton to the property. Didn't do anything. but I had my own economy. What was the economy?
You found the buyer.
I had
And
a
the
stable of
seller.
clients. Most of you guys are unwilling to pay your dues by property managing. I had a stable of clients that I property managed for them so well that what? They always wanted more properties. They're like, if it's going to be like this, where I get a check a month from this guy, and the tenants are in, and he collects stuff, and he takes care of things, and he's on top of it, all of them would buy more buildings. So you got 15 owners, you buy one of these and call your 15 owners, and what? You got yourself a sale for an $80,000 profit before you even close.
When you sold that, you continue to manage it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because it doesn't help me to say to my client, hey, I'm going to go ahead and sell you this asset, but some other clown's going to manage it and they'll run it into the ground for you. That's not appealing. They didn't want more properties if they weren't going to be managed the way that we managed them. So property management is a skill, and it's a way to pay your dues. Have you paid your dues? Are you interested in paying your dues? If you want to learn how to property manage a 155-plex, you better know how to property manage a 4-plex. Cut your teeth, pay your dues. Does that make sense? I can't hear you.
Yes.
Now, what I promised you when we started here, you want to learn how to turn a for sale by owner into a seller finance. Anybody want to learn that real quick?
Yes.
Would you be more excited than that?
Yes.
Okay, so here's how we do that. First thing I do is I sit down with these guys, you interested in selling? And they say, yes, I'm interested in selling. I say, hey, can you bring all of your mortgage documents? All of your mortgage documents that you used when you purchased this asset, can you bring them to our listing appointment? There's some mortgage terms and things, and I just need to be aware of so that everything goes correctly. And I also need your last 2 years' tax returns. Last 2 years' tax returns. Why would I want their tax returns? So on a Schedule C will tell you what the net operating income was for this building. So they have to report their gross income, expenses, net operating income divided by 12, divided by 4. I know how much a month she's been getting. And if it's been improperly managed, what does that mean? So listen to this. Here's the conversion. Here's the thinking point. The Schedule C per month is how much you'll offer at the highest on a for sale by owner seller finance principal and interest payment. So if your principal and interest payment can be equal to or close to, depending on how much pain they're in, sometimes you find these vacant and they'll take 60 cents on the dollar from what their Schedule C was 2 years ago. Literally, as a payment. Now you can do the price right, but the payment's down here low because you have next to a no interest rate, right? And that's still marketable because you can sell it with a higher interest rate, make a profit, and make the spread on the interest rate over time. But the point here is this. What's the Schedule C? They will tell you how much they netted, and you say, I need to see your Schedule C. Why? Because it's never the same thing. Never the same thing. Not even close. Not even close. They'll tell you one number, and either they didn't remember or they're hedging a little bit, but you ask for the Schedule C and what? You get the number. And that's the number right there. So you say in your head, if I pay them that number, there's no property management, they don't have to worry about the property anymore, and this can go for years. Most people are very interested in that. For rent, turned into seller financing. Unbelievable technique. Did a lot of deals that way. How many of you guys can get unlimited mortgages? Probably not everybody. I'm guessing 1 or 2 of you can't. This is a way to do subject to seller financing. By the way, the second #1 bestseller I wrote on Amazon was How to Buy and Sell Real Estate Without Using a Bank. Right there. There it is. I wasn't smart enough to keep this one because I could have taken this one down. The lot's pretty deep. But the other thing that I looked at, what was the rule that we learned on the last property?
Density.
Look at the plat map everywhere you go. And if you'd have pulled up the plat map, which you didn't, if you bought that house right there, you could tear out the fourplex, that house, and you have a drive-through from street to street, which on narrow lots is important because the hardest thing to do on civil work, site plans, and plat maps on narrow lots is a fire turnaround. Call that a hammerhead. How does the fire truck get here? If I did 6 townhomes, the fire, depending on how far back, normally it's 150 feet. The fire department will give you 150 feet from the back of curb to the end of the building, and they'll fight that fire without a turnaround. But if it goes further than that, so I went into the city, talked to this guy, he was interested in selling, had this one under contract and said, I want to tear them out, and how many townhomes can I get? Brand new townhomes. And the city said, what? And I didn't push the deal because I already had an $80,000 profit waiting for myself. So we went that route. But we're always thinking, always asking questions, always looking at opportunities. Does that make sense? Yeah. Highest and best use, density, more. How do we get more? And what did I get in this case? More dollar bills in my pocket. Right? And I got more rent. Did you catch the part where I raised the rents $50 a unit? Real quick law. 90% of the people that have owned a building 10 years or more are at least 10% low on their rents. You say that again because not one of you wrote it down. 90% of people that have owned a building 10 years or more are at least 10% low on their rents. And you don't know that because you're not studying this. This is not an art and a science to you yet. You don't know that. You got to know what market rents are. And you call a property and notice it's not market rents, there's a play there. $50 a month times 4 units is $200 times 24 or 12 months is how much? $2,400. Doesn't sound like a lot. If I tell you what, you divide it by a 5 cap, that's a lot. That's $100,000 right there. That's $100,000, a $50 per unit rent change. 100 grand, $50 a unit. So why do people that have properties 10 years or more have low rents? They got it. Listen, they bought the property 10 years ago. They have a mortgage from 10 years ago. Here's their mortgage payment for the last 10 years. Here's the rents. Mortgage payment, rents. Mortgage payment, rents. If they're always below the rent line, instead of here's the mortgage and their rents are here instead of here, they're increasing the money that they're getting, but people won't leave. The tenants won't move. Why? They got to pay more anywhere they go. So the tenants stay. The most expensive part of owning a fourplex and managing it is the turnover between tenants. You could spend $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 easily on a tenant, on a renovation. If you're getting $500 a month, that's the next 6 months of your rent. And that guy could wreck it in that 6 months if you're not careful. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I was a property manager for what? Why was I a property manager? Because I had a guy that owned a house. He would sell that, he would let me list and sell that house as a realtor. I'd sell him that duplex. The guy that owned that duplex would list it with me and sell it and buy this fourplex. The guy that had this fourplex would list it with me and sell it, and I'd give him an 8plex over here. Double side, double side, double sides, double side on 4 transactions. And how many listing appointments did I have? 0. I just showed up to sign papers. How many clients did I have to convince to work with me? I was doing 100 transactions a year and making more money investing as a realtor. Creating my own economy. Be bigger than yourself. Use the laws of leverage. What are the laws of leverage real quickly? Laws of leverage. People, property, capital, systems, and technology. Didn't write it down. 5 systems that you're not using. People, property, capital, systems, and technology. The 5 tools of leverage. If you ever want to be bigger than yourself, that's what you're going to do. People, property, capital, systems, technology. The 5 tools of leverage. That's how we become bigger than ourselves. You're walking around by yourself.